the post-Atlantean, meaning when the Christ incarnated, that was a descent. Okay, it was a descent, a materialization. We didn't become physical beings as such until halfway through the Atlantean epoch. During the Lemurian and the Polarian and the Hyperborean, we were not physical beings at all, and the earth was not a physical place. And the sun and the moon was united with the earth. Right? So...
What do you mean? I don't understand that. The sun and the moon...
The sun beings and the earth, moon
beings,
which united with the earth. And they separated themselves all and created the sphere of influence, which we now know as the sun and the moon. Right? So that presupposes that they're going to return. They're going to come back later on. But that's because we're on an ascending path since the time of the Christ. The Christ deed, among other things, produced such an impetus to world development that he set it on an ascending path. Nevertheless, even though since that time, 2,000 years ago, it would appear otherwise, that we're continuing to descend, the fact of the matter is, inwardly, we are starting the ascent due to the Christ impulse. And it's working in everybody, whether we know it or not. But as I said, if we are not consciously aware of it and working with it, then we have certain problems, like I'm giving you tonight, lack of consciousness. The other one is lack of moral quality, lack of truthfulness. I mean, that's just rampant today. Another one is the love of comfort and ease. And I'm talking spiritual comfort and ease. You know, I don't think we can avoid, for the most part, physical comfort and ease. That's pretty much a given today for most people. I mean, you can't say, when you look around your apartment or your house, that you don't live like a king of the old times would literally be incredibly jealous about. Mm-hmm. We live a life of comfort and ease physically that's just incredible. You know, we have lighting, we have heating, we have TVs, we have
pillow
electric,
and a blanket,
we have
a
toilet,
bed.
Shelter,
water that comes out of...
Yeah, hot and cold, we have sanitation. If we didn't have sanitation, we couldn't live together at all, because we'd stink the place up so much. We'd have to leave.
Yeah.
And we complain about it.
And we complain about it, right. But there's the spiritual comfort in these, the emotional comfort in these that's has such a strong hold on people. How often do you hear, I'm not in my comfort zone. I don't feel comfortable talking about it.
No.
You hear that all the time. But the fact is, we have to develop a disdain for spiritual comfort and ease, because if we have an affinity for spiritual comfort and ease, we are then roped in by Ahrimanic beings in the course between our death and rebirth, which bring about obstacles to people on earth of their spiritual development. They rope us in and we work for them if we don't develop a disdain for comfort and ease. And there's another consequence. So you see, all this stuff comes, see, this whole thing of Steiner is fundamentally, if you were to describe the copious amount of lectures he gave and the books he wrote in one sentence or 3 words, it is a Christ initiation. That's what it is, because he's a Christ initiate himself.
What is the title of the book you're reading from?
Life Between Death and Rebirth.
That's what you said earlier, yeah.
Right. So I am going to do, let's see what I can do. Because there's so much rich material. I've read this 3 times now. So, and I'm going to read it probably 3 or 4 more times before I'm done with this particular life between birth and death.
That's the title?
Life Between Birth and Death.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Look for it on eBay. Amazon.
All right, so let's see. Let's go to the next one I'm going to do, and then I'll finish for the night. How's the time doing?
I think 8:30.
Right. Okay. You will gather from the foregoing that from a higher aspect, life on earth really constitutes a special case. We live embodied within a special organism on earth between life and death. Apart from an earthly incarnation, one can speak of an embodiment between death and rebirth, or rather of an ensouling. What I have elaborated in connection with the spiritual world, which also applies to the earth. Consider that a human being living between death and rebirth may pass through the Mars sphere without entering in the slightest connection with the beings who inhabit Mars. He does not see them, and they are not aware of him. Okay, because we haven't prepared ourselves to go through there as quote-unquote sociable beings. The inhabitants of Mars spend the normal course of their life on Mars, and during their experience, which corresponds on Mars to the period between death and a new life, but yet is different, they pass through the planetary spheres also. So that in fact, inhabitants of other planets are continually passing through our Earth's sphere. Human beings are unable to establish any contact with them because they live under quite different conditions, and because they will, in the main, not have made the least connection with these beings on Mars. What would be the condition necessary in order to meet the beings from other planets as they pass through the Earth's sphere? One would have had to develop points of contact with them in their own planetary realms, but this is only possible if on Earth one has already reached the stage of being able to contact beings other than those of the Earth as a result of the development of supersensible powers. So, the point is that as we go through our development and as we go through further incarnations, we will develop these supersensible powers as a natural, should we say, faculty.
Couldn't you do some work while you're here to get closer there? I mean, isn't that the purpose?
Study Rudolf Steiner.
Yeah, well, because, I mean, there has to be some meaning for having listened tonight that, you know, my next step in life after this, that I've learned something so that I can set a different intention for the way I live. And
set yourself a different agenda than you would otherwise do. Yeah, because the fact of the matter, the reason that we study Rudolf Steiner is because although it is definitely not given to all of us who study Rudolf Steiner that we're going to develop supersensible powers, we nevertheless will be working on faculties which are latent in our astral bodies that will eventually come to fruition in future incarnations. And if we establish a personal relationship to Christ, then that will be even more so the case. Thank you very much.
Thank you.